Welcome to the Saints of City Me audio love letters to New Orleans and her Saints. We've got some very special guests on today's episode. We'd like to welcome John Hendrix of Saints News Network on Sports Illustrated. John's been covering the Saints since 2011 and has also published Tales from New Orleans Sideline with Jeff Duncan. Joining John is a returning guest and our good friend Ross Jackson of Locked On Network and more recently Louisiana.net. And of course, their Avengers level team up show, Second and Saints. Gentlemen, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
Wonderful.
Can't thank you enough
Great
for
to be
having
here
us.
with you.
Yes, for sure.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, we should be ones thanking you. It's always great to talk to you both. How are you? How's California?
Well, I don't know.
I think
you want to start?
John and I. I was gonna say, I think you and I probably got like a couple shades darker, but like outside of that, it was like it was a typical training camp, but it was cool to be out there. It was fun. It was great to be around.
Yeah.
It was good to just see football, right, John? I mean,
Yeah,
geez,
no.
dude, like that was huge for us.
No, I'm with you. I think that was the biggest thing is that, just being able to be around the team is kind of more of a close-knit kumbaya type thing because they were able to have training camp together and build team camaraderie, all that fun stuff. But look, California was great.
Mhm.
I think most of us by the end of it were like, okay, it's time to go home, right? Like, I mean, I know the weather's fantastic out there. We had to deal with some earthquakes, but it never rained. It was always perfect weather, but it was good to get back home.
I mean, I've just been out there for 3 weeks. I didn't want to come home, but obviously it's a bit of a difference for me to you guys.
Yeah, it was. I think that there's just something about. I mean, you guys do this your audio love letter to the city of New Orleans all the time, right? John and I had the great grace of being able to come back here to this great city, and so I think that was a big part of what probably pulled us back to where it was like, yeah, and especially like, I mean, I had lived on that campus before, I had been in that place before. That was all kind of stuff that I had already had in a past life, everything, and so I was like, okay, I'm just ready to be back where it all matters, and for me, like, and I think for John as well, that's here. That's home.
Yes. Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, it was nice to be away, but I got a wife, I got 2 kids, and so they missed the fire out of me, even though they got to spend like a week out. So it was like nice to be able to get back to family. And like, really, this is the first normal week I think I've had, and we had Labor Day off, right? And so this is the first normal week I've had since I've been back. So it's been nice. Next week will officially be a normal week.
Finally.
Yeah.
The build up to the first game. I think myself and Dan want to congratulate you firstly on the success of Second and Saints.
Thank you.
What was that? Just because of your friendship that you thought let's bring about something together, or did he force you into it, Ross? He's got some dark secrets on you we're not aware of.
No, not like that, John. You should take this one though. This was John. John was really the initiating force behind it.
I mean,
all.
look, I was back in the podcast game in like 2015, 16 when the Saints were doing well, and we did it all wrong. And I did like an hour-long show, and just wasn't anything crazy. And so I'd been out of the podcast game for so long, but I always wanted to get back in. And I guess I saw it was like, okay, it's time, right? Like, I guess that's my main thing. And then Ross and I were working at Saints News Network, and it's just kind of one of those things. Hey, do you have any interest in doing this? And it kind of like took off from there because I had ideas. I had plenty of ideas and full of all those things. But Ross and I just vibe together so well, and we consider ourselves friends. You know what I'm saying? Really good friends, and we've done life together for a while, and so it was nice to be able to just be like, all right, this is easy, and our chemistry on there, like, we don't do anything that's rehearsed or anything like that. Like, it's all organic, and look, we're just like blown away because of the support that we get from fans and stuff. Like when we did our show in California, somebody from San Diego drove up 3 hours to come see our live show, and it was like, hey,
Wow.
we are like nobody, right? You know what I'm saying? And so it's just it's been that type of thing where we just love to connect with the fans because Saints fans are passionate, and we always live by that creed. Love New Orleans, they love you back, and look, we're shining examples of that for sure. But it's been great doing that pod with Ross, and it's only look forward to getting it bigger.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll mention, and I've not told John this before, but I think if anyone else would have come to me and asked me that question, I probably would have said no, but it was John. And so it was an easy decision for me to say yes and to jump on and do, to do that show with him and everything like that. Cause I could see the passion, I could see the vision, I could see everything behind it. So it was such an easy yes for me to do. In an otherwise circumstance where I might have said, my schedule is a little busy, blah, 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 like whatever, and stuff like that. And so, but it was John. And so it was a super easy yes for me because I knew that, I knew that John wouldn't take advantage of the my time and stuff like that, and that it would be a fair share and all this other stuff and everything, which is important when you're collaborating with somebody, whether a friend or not, whatever it might be, it's important. But also just the mutual respect that we have for one another. Both of us kind of coming from a very untraditional pathway into credentialed media and everything. John was a model for me in terms of what I watched and what I saw him do. I was like, okay, great. There's a way for me to do this, and being able to kind of follow in those shoes. Like it was an easy yes for me. And it's been so much fun since we do it. I look forward to it every time that we have a show set.
I was going to say to that.
I thought, sorry, Dad, I was going to say, I thought for a moment there you were saying John was a model.
Yeah, also yes. Also yes.
Little known fact.
Also
back
correct.
In high school and stuff, I actually was a model for a brief time. I got the headshots and all that stuff to prove, but we don't need to talk about worms. One day, maybe.
You know what I'm saying?
I was going to say, just on Ross's point now, I know that we've got a question on it, but I know, John, a lot of people hold you up as well as someone who's that untraditional path. People will point to you as being an inspiration for them, regardless of whether they are credential media or trying to work towards that direction. That a lot of people do hold you up and say, John is a really good example of how you work hard and get to the place where you want to be and meet your ambitions. One of the things I was going to say is thank you guys, because you're probably one of the only live shows that goes out at a time that's generally accessible for UK fans, and that's no shade at anyone else. But when you do something like 5 o'clock your time, at least we can jump on and contribute to the questions and things like that, whereas some of the other pods are maybe 2, 3 in the morning for us. So we want to thank you for that on the behalf of the UK fans, the Irish fans, our boy Charlie Smith, and the European fans as well. So thank you very much.
Oh, that's awesome to hear.
Shout out to Ireland, man. We love our fans back in Ireland and UK, man. I and Ross and I were both there when they played the Vikings out there, and man, we just it never ceases to amaze me how well like Saints fans travel and how passionate they are, and like being able to see like the local pubs and stuff that had the Saints, like this is where we watch party and all this other stuff. Like we're blown away. I know I can speak for us, but we were blown away with like all much the support that we got out there too. It was just something awesome to see.
Yeah, it was crazy.
What a venue!
And you were both
Tottenham Spurs was amazing.
Yeah. I was going to say, you were both drunkenly accosted by us as well.
You mean I can't speak for John, but you mean I was drunkenly accepting your drunken accosting, because I was right there with you guys. Like, come on now.
No, I made a beeline for John when I was there, drunkenly. I'll thank you for, it was the, one of the Funkos you sent me a few years ago, and I said, thank you for this, and I realised I was talking about the wrong Funko, and I was just like a mess. But anyway, it was a good day.
All good.
That's awesome.
I think just quickly from a perspective of, before we move on to the Saints, just when you were over, John, I know you were posting about having Indian food over there. What did you reckon on it? It's good stuff, isn't it?
Oh,
it's the
gosh.
national dish of England somehow.
Man, I went to Patri Hammersmith, and I won't forget that Indian dish. Like, I took my wife out because we ended up celebrating our anniversary as well. And look, I think I had chips, fish and chips like twice, and I did it right the second time. But like, the Indian food was so amazing. I think we had a bowl of ramen, because we did the British Museum too, and there was like a ramen place right across the street, and it was some of the best food. Like, I don't know if people understand, but food out there tastes completely different than what it does back at home. Like, I had no product placement because we need to be sponsored, but Coke Zero, right? Like, that's my drink. The ingredients and the taste over there was like different than what it is back home. I don't know how to describe it, but I had some of the best food out there. The Indian dish, Patri Hammersmith, they were just amazing. Like, I had curry, I had some fish, I had some lamb, I had all sorts of stuff that was just out of this world. And so I haven't found it back home yet, but it was amazing.
I'm gonna take a note of that restaurant, because we'll try and get sponsorship in the UK from them.
There you go.
That's good. Yeah.
There you go.
Let's get that down. I think on a personal note, Dan, I think you want to congratulate somebody, don't you?
Well, I want to congratulate John on your new Ross, your new role with LouisianaSports.net, and also John for absolutely smashing those Peloton challenges. I've been following John on Instagram,
Yeah, man.
and he's absolutely nailed the Peloton challenges. So congratulations to you both on those two personal achievements.
Yeah,
Thank you, bud.
It was funny because I don't know who pays attention and stuff, right? Like in the Saints locker room, but I was walking by Alvin Kamara yesterday, which was Wednesday. And, I always ask about his family, like his daughter, like Ross and I are those people that we really genuinely like ask about people's, players' families and stuff. And I was asking him, he's like, man, what you down to now? And I'm like, how does he know? Like, I mean, I know I have it pinned on the profile, but I'm not like, actively saying, hey, Alvin, check this out or anything. But he asked and I told him, and he's like, man, it's just crazy, like people seeing and noticing. And of course, I've been around Alvin for a long time, but, that's also visibly noticing that, I'm slimmed down a lot. But yeah, man, down 57 pounds total right now. And I'm not
that's
done,
amazing.
But, it's just it's been a nice, healthy lifestyle change. And it just took me forever, but I'm 40 now. I know I don't look 40, but I'm 40 now, and so I got to make sure that my health is on the top of its game now.
Yeah,
exactly. But I think it's that's the reason you don't look 40 is because that modelling contract that you had when you were in high school, John.
Still look like a baby.
That's coming through now, my friend.
There you go. There you go. So it's Hispanic genes, man.
Unfortunately, I've got the Irish genes, which they're not quite as good. So, well, I think we'll move on because obviously I know you guys have got to run off to practice. So we're just going to plough through, I think, some of the thoughts on the upcoming season. Dan, do you want to take the first one? Because I think it's a little baby of yours, isn't it?
Yeah. So hashtag the agenda. Is it social media hype or is the call coming from inside the building? Like you guys saw practice camp. We hear people talking about Spencer Rattler flashing and stuff. Is he ready to step in? Do you think? Or my personal view is I'd like to see the Saints take the Patrick Mahomes, Green Bay Packers approach. Let him learn the offense, get ingrained in the offense, improve that offensive line in the next draft potentially, and then look to bring him in rather than just say, do you know what? We love him. Let's just throw him into the deep end right now. Because it's really hard for us over here to understand whether it is genuinely just social media have started this juggernaut of a campaign or whether it's inside the building they're saying, do you know, maybe this kid's better than we thought he was going to be when we drafted him in the 5th round.
Ross, you want to start? Go ahead. Yeah.
I think, I'll
I can take it too. I got my opinions, but
I think two things are true. I think that the New Orleans Saints are very, very excited about Spencer Rattler and what he can develop into, and that Derek Carr is the starting quarterback for the 2024 season. I think both things are true. So here's what I would say. I do think, yes, it is I don't want to call it social media hype because I feel like that kind of like dismisses it a little bit, and I don't want to do that, but it is a social media phenomena that is happening where people are excited about the potential future of this quarterback, Spencer Rattler, and therefore the New Orleans Saints. And I think that's awesome. The other truth is that the Saints are just as excited about Spencer Rattler, as far as I understand, but they're not in a hurry to throw him out on the field. And so I'm with you, Dan. And you know that I'm somebody that looked at Spencer Rattler pretty unfavorably coming out of college. I was a guy that looked at him as a guy that wasn't necessarily ready to go, that maybe had some NFL traits, NFL tools, but wasn't going to be that guy as a 1st-round pick. And that's what people were like tossing around at the time and things like that. But seeing him go in the 5th round, seeing him show up to New Orleans and have the attitude that he has, developing, doing everything that he's done. And you can see the growth clearly from rookie minicamp to OTAs where he struggled a little bit, back to mandatory minicamps and then into training camp, into the preseason. You can see the growth all throughout there. So I think that there's an exciting trajectory for the player. And I think that that is something that the fan base is responding to because it is a massive unknown at the most important position for any disappointed fan base, the backup quarterback. And for that, that's where I say that a lot of the excitement comes from. And I don't think the excitement is necessarily negative when it comes from the fan base. I think the expectation, though, that he will quickly start over Derek Carr, who they have a lot of money invested in, who they believe in, who was their head coach's selection at quarterback. I think that expectation is a little bit unfounded and unlikely to come to fruition. But I do think that the excitement around Spencer Rattler is warranted, and it exists both outside and inside the facility.
Yeah, I think to piggyback off of him, look, we got to talk to South Carolina's head coach Shane Beamer and then his offensive coordinator Dow Loggins, and pretty much everything that they had said about Spencer Rattler and his abilities has shown through, right? Like, I think that's the biggest thing is that, you know, he does command himself in a certain way, and you can tell that there is some confidence with him. And look, I told this to Ross, but, you know, Jake Hayner and him, they both have a really bright future. Like, it's been a long time since you could say, okay, maybe the answer is inside the building. And look, the Saints, I'm of the belief, and I believe that next year is another Derek Carr and Dennis Allen year. Like, I just believe that, and there's plenty of things I could go on and say, but, you know, look, I'm of the firm belief that Rattler needs to sit behind the bench and he needs to learn, and they're going to develop him. I think that's the biggest thing is they have the coaching staff in the building to develop, right? Like, as before, no disrespect to any of the coaches there, but, you know, Andrew Janako and the way he's been able to do things as a quarterback coach, and Clint Kubiak has been some of the most unparalleled type of coaching, hands-on coaching that we have seen in a long time for this team. And look, you know, the social media thing, it is a thing, right? And it's funny because fans are more excited and are more interested in seeing who's the backup quarterback than they are about the actual team. Like, that's just nuts to me. Like, you're more worried about who's quarterback number 2 than the team ready to play a game against the Panthers and all this other stuff. And again, he's going to be fascinating. I think if they can have the patience, if he can have the patience, and look, Jake Hayner, I think for all intents and purposes, he's probably the backup, but, you know, it's fascinating to see how far he's come along with Spencer Rattler in such a short time. That makes you wonder, but I don't think that we'll ever see him in a game this year unless something drastic happens. But, you know, not to be the burst the bubble or the reality, calm down to reality, but this offense is catered where Derek doesn't have to take a lot of hits. He's going to get the ball out quicker. It's going to lean heavily on the run game, and he's going to be a game manager. And I think he's going to be more like what fans expected, but nobody's ever going to amount to Drew Brees, right? Like, I think that's the biggest thing. No matter what quarterback has come through here, nobody's Drew Brees. They're always going to be in Drew Brees' shadow, and so they're just trying to be the best version of himself. But Rattler is going to be fascinating, whether it's next year or the year after that. Like, I'm really legitimately interested to see where he goes.
And to jump,
It's only,
I was going to
say, sorry,
Sorry?
Dan, just quickly on that. It's only really Saints and Saints Twitter that could create a QB2 controversy. That says everything about Saints Twitter, and it's why I love it and at times loathe it at the same time, because that's our fan base. Sorry, Dan, you were going to say.
No, I was going to say that the point John mentioned there around, you know, the DA being in next year and Derek Carr and et cetera, the coaching staff. I think a lot of people jumped on the interview that Derek Carr did yesterday. I'm not sure who caught it, whether it was NOF or one of you guys, but Carr was talking about, you know, I've got so many playbooks in my head because I've had so many different offensive coordinators. And you got to look at Rattler and go, you don't want to do that to him. You want a really consistent bedrock for him to build on, having the same coaches there and him learning that playbook and becoming a mature quarterback without having to jump from one place to another to learn things. So you want to give him that as much of an advantage at the beginning of his NFL career as you possibly can. And, you know, to that point, Derek Carr's had a lot of offensive coordinators, and that's probably been a detriment to him in some ways because he's constantly learning a new playbook.
This is his 8th offensive coordinator change, 7th offensive coordinator that he will have worked with across those changes, and so it's a lot, man. Like it's a lot to go through that, and then conversely, when it comes to, or alternatively rather, when it comes to Spencer Rattler, he was this offensive coordinator's pick. It's why my good friend John disagree. He says that Jake Hayner is probably the backup quarterback. I think we probably, maybe we feel the same way that it should be Spencer Rattler, but I think that Spencer Rattler being Clint Kubiak's selection, like that kind of makes me lean a little bit more towards Spencer Rattler for right now. Now it's going to be interesting to see like how things kind of like bounce around throughout the regular season. But John and I have always been on different parts of that conversation for different reasons, and both valid and understandable reasons, because of where Clint Kubiak is. I think the thing that's going to be really interesting for me is if it is Derek Carr next season and it is Dennis Allen next season, and we're really looking at 2026 for who's the future at quarterback, I highly doubt that Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener are the only two quarterbacks that are in that conversation at that time. I believe there would be another option that has either come in via the draft or is in the free agency pool by then that ends up infiltrating that conversation and potentially even erasing the conversation depending upon who that quarterback is. So I think the timeline becomes really, really impactful for this excitement that we all see right now around Spencer Rattler. Does he even really get a legitimate shot at any point? I think he deserves that shot, but there are some kind of unforeseen, extenuating circumstances that might keep that from ever happening, depending upon who becomes available over the course of the next two seasons.
Yeah, and
you talk about Arch Manning, aren't you?
Yeah, never know.
Could be.
Well, here's my thing. Here's the way I look at it. Like, just to so people get a sense of why I say DA and Carr and all this stuff, because I'm of the belief that, and this is how I think, you got one more year after the season with DeMario, Cam, and Tyron, right? And so what I believe is that they get close this year. If they even get to the wild card or they win the division, they're going to push the chips in for next year. And they're going to do that with Allen and Carr. Like, they're tied to the hip. So if Allen goes, Carr might be out, right? Like, I just feel like that's a possibility. But I don't get the sense, like, if they turn in a 9-8 and get in the wild card, then they're going to call it a success. Although I think they have more in the tank, obviously. But I just think that they look at next year, it's like, okay, this is legitimately the last push we can make with DeMario, Cam, and Tyron, because they're probably all going to retire after, 2025. And so then you could say, okay, after that's all said and done, do we want to go strip rebuild in a sense? Do we want to retool, or do we want to go with another veteran quarterback of a free agent? And it's like we did with the Derek Carr. And so that's just kind of how I look at it. And of course, they turn in a 3-14 or 5-12 or something like that. There's no leg to stand on. I don't see that, but
Yeah.
That's me playing the logic game. That's why I think about Jake Haener, because I'm thinking of it from a Dennis Allen standpoint, that he has the final say so. And he always talks about the moxie. He always downplays rookie. That's why I'm putting on the coach's hat of what, he's thinking in that aspect. No disrespect to Spencer Rattler, because I think he's hella talented. I think he's somebody that is clearly a lot more exciting in some aspects. But I think Jake has his moments too. But again, we're talking about the quarterback too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the bottom line, it would just be great if we did have the franchise QB in the building. So he can come in the next couple of years. That'd be wonderful. Nobody would be arguing. Nobody would be worrying. If we've got that, great. If not, we have to look elsewhere.
And especially one on a rookie contract, which is like key for rebuilding your success.
That would be wonderful.
You've got to look at the 49ers contract with Purdy.
They don't have to worry about paying him. So, but it's cool.
There was a point that you were making, obviously, about the sort of the offensive coaching staff that have come in, and you named Janoco and stuff. There was a question that we had, which was obviously aside from Clint Kubiak, which one of that new sort of offensive coaching setup do you think will have or has already had the biggest impact on the Saints so far?
We probably already know.
Go ahead, John.
I think it's Keith Williams. I think that's probably who we're thinking of, the wide receivers coach. Yeah. Look, I think Andrew Janako's done amazing things with the quarterback. Like, he's doing things that even like Derek Carr's like, okay, in my 10 plus years of being in the league, I'm not finding that, and I think that's important, right? But for me, it's Keith Williams. Guy comes over from Baltimore. Obviously had Odell Beckham. He had some really talented receivers there, but the way he's come in and taught the game, and the fact that the players have responded to him, and look, it says a lot that they're going with a very young core, like Cedric Wilson, who's 27. Yeah. He's the oldest guy in the room. And then outside of that, it's 3-year start or like third-year players and less, right? Like, you got 2 rookies. You've got a second-year player in A.T. Perry. You've got Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave. Like, this is a very young room, and I feel like they have the right teacher who's going to hold them accountable and also get them where they need to be. And then, the biggest thing is he's going to reward the success. Like, he's a guy that, like, his passion on the field, like, I don't know how this guy wasn't a coach already, like a higher coach, but, for the Saints to get him in this capacity is a huge win, in my opinion.
Completely agreed. Completely agree. I have nothing to add. I just think he brings you everything that you're looking for at that position. Somebody that relates to the players, somebody that's able to like coach them up and everything that brings energy. Like he just checks all the boxes.
Yeah.
I suspected. I was looking as Mike was reading the question. I looked at the coaches that we'd listed, and I had William circled. So I suspected because people just been so up on his enthusiasm and the way he builds that relationship with the players. And I suppose a lot of that comes from him being a private coach as well. He's used to having to build quite an intimate relationship with people, and then to bring that into a 53-man roster is obviously going to be a benefit to the team and building that rapport with the players and getting them on side.
He's also done it. You know what I mean? Like he was an undrafted guy that came in and had to figure his way out. He wasn't the tallest guy, and so he had to figure out like how to be crafty at the position. He has life experience that compares to the life experience of the players in the locker room and things like that. Like it's a lot of stuff, man. Like from the personal side of it to the professional side of it. He checks, like I said, he checks all the boxes when it comes to like creating those relationship with the players, knows how to talk to them, knows the language because he's done it himself. Like it just all works.
That's good. Promising to hear. Because obviously everyone liked Curry, who was there before as well, didn't they, in that kind of capacity as well. But to replace him with someone who's going to keep that going is obviously very positive for the fans to hear.
Yeah, just the last one on that, because it's obviously, and I know a lot of Saints fans in the UK have been sort of on WhatsApp groups sort of speaking about it since the roster was announced. Mason Tipton obviously didn't play a snap in the preseason. Obviously, was very, very. I mean, that's all you were hearing for the first 2 or 3 weeks coming out, but then we heard nothing. Can you explain exactly what it is that maybe makes him good? Or is it some sort of roster juggling exercise, or just because that came? I know you guys over there were talking about him. A lot of people were talking very highly of him. When you haven't heard someone's name, for 4 weeks, you tend to think that's his opportunity gone. What it is about him? What is it?
Man, Ross, I'll just start here. Like, I mean, you remember we were side by side in OTAs, and I remember turning to you and said, he was running with the first team offense, and he just had like, I think it was just a go route, but nobody was on him. And I was like, if Derek sees him, that's a touchdown. But like, he was getting some looks early on, is what I'm bringing to the surface. And they really like the prospect. In some aspects, he reminds me a little bit of Lance Moore, but has some extra skills to him and stuff. Like he's got some speed to him that they really kind of like here. And so, look, I think with Mason Tipton, he was doing everything. And look, you talk about on the field play is one thing, but you also need to learn and be coachable and to get the trust of whoever's the quarterback, the offensive coordinator. And I think Tipton did a nice job of that. He's not just a one-note person where he just runs deep routes and he catches it, right? Like he's working on a polished, route tree. I think he showed us some of the things on the route tree. He's got good hands. He can return. There's a lot of things that he could. I was surprised that he did make the final roster because I thought the injury was what was going to hurt him. But in the same breath, guys like Kevin Austin Jr. weren't able to make the most of it to make a roster spot, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like even Equinemius St. Brown, like we struggled putting him at number 5, both Ross and I, because it's like, I mean, yeah, he could get in, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I don't know that we were wowed because of his training camp. We knew Cedric Wilson Jr. was going to be a guy, but some of these guys that played, I don't think they gave the effort, passion, and were consistent enough, just like what Mason Tipton is, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So go on, Russ.
Go ahead. I would agree with that. It's the hands, the speed, the route running, his ability to contribute on multiple spots and stuff like that. Like it's everything that the New Orleans Saints love. They didn't get to see him during the preseason, which may have actually aided him because if he would have gone to the preseason and maybe didn't perform as well in those preseason games, then it might have hindered the way that they felt about him from the practices early on and things like that. So, I think it was a surprise, but you can see where it is at the Saints, what they really liked about Mason Tipton.
I can't get a bet on him at the moment in the UK. I've contacted the bookmakers directly and said, "What odds can you get me on any time touchdown?" They won't touch it. And not that they know I am, but I've stung our bookies. I got them with Rashid Shaheed against Arizona. I've got them with other ones. They are not touching Mason Tipton. I'm going to have to try Dallin Holker instead. See if I can get him. I think St. Brown hurt his chances by shit talking food in New Orleans. That's what done him. He would have been in if he hadn't have said that shit on that podcast. That was him done. He was done. He's like, nope.
Yeah, he also picked like the most basic New Orleans restaurant too. I was a little disappointed in the restaurant that he chose.
Did he choose Popeyes?
No, I'm not gonna mention it by name.
No, that's fine. I'm joking. Yeah. Just looking back at the roster, when you look at what you've seen in preseason and what you're looking at potentially how the team's going to look during the season, we just wonder if you had like some candidates for Saints MVP. So not league MVP, but just who at the end of the season would you look back and go, maybe that was our best player on offense and that was our best player on defense, or if you had to name like 3 candidates that you think at the end of the season we could be talking about them as being like the team's MVPs for the year.
We'll probably come up with the same players. I mean, I think for me, number 1 is Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill is probably one. It's Taysom. It's Kamara, right? I think Kamara is the other one that I think we're going to be talking about at the end of the year. And look, I'll throw Chris Olave in there, right? I think that those 3. Yeah. I mean, not because they're the top skill, but Taysom Hill, man, I just feel like this is his year. And he just got named a captain. Like, I mean, he has just done everything and then some. And I finally feel like they've got the guy who can work and use him the right way. Like, that was always the problem, is you could not consistently use Alvin or Taysom Hill. And they're your 2 best weapons, right? And so here, I don't question that. And of course, I want to see it in a game, but I just feel like those 3, at least from an offensive perspective, are going to help be the driving force. And again, I kind of give a little bit of love to Derek Carr, but I just think with this attack being so run focused, run heavy first, I think Taysom's going to be the guy because he can break tackles. I mean, we had plenty of fun debating whether or not Willie Gay Jr. was going to stop him in the backfield, or is it Chase Young going to stop? Like, we just don't know, because Taysom is a guy that just plows all over. So, I mean, that's my offensive guys offhand. I mean, there's probably some other guys in the tier 2 that I think could be extra there. Guys like Eric McCoy being the MVP, we kind of overlook. I think, guys at tight end position, I think Juwan could have a really bounce back year for sure. And so, and then outside of that, I'd say Rashid. Rashid would probably get my other vote. So, especially in the return game. That's offense. So you can piggyback off that.
Yeah, well,
and we'll talk defense, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I've got like 3 players left, and they're all on the offensive line left over at this point. No, yeah, no, I think Taysom was going to be my top pick too, and everything. John and I do this together a lot. Taysom was my top pick for sure. I was gonna go with what will probably be an unpopular selection in Derek Carr. But I think that the thing about it is, like, this offense, in terms of what he would need to do to be the team's MVP, he doesn't have to be a hero. He doesn't have to go out there and like chuck it 50 yards down the field. He's got to orchestrate a good offensive system. That's all he's got to be able to do. And if he's able to go out there and do that, and he's able to do it to the extent that he and the team were able to in the last 6 games of the 2023 season, I think there's a real opportunity there for Derek Carr to maybe change the narrative around himself a little bit. Can he do it? I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not going to advocate one way or another on that, because he's the one that's got to prove that. But does he have the opportunity to do it? 100% he does. And so if he can take advantage of that opportunity, then yeah, I would put him in the conversation for guys that have the potential to be that player. But otherwise, Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, the exact same 3 that I was going to mention right off the top.
We'd agree on the same defensive players
way
too.
Too high in all my drafts.
I know it.
Yeah, defense is easy. I mean, I think we'd say Chase Young, Willie Gay Jr., and then DeMario probably still being there, of course. But I hope Marshawn's healthy to go the distance. I'm really interested to see what Paulson Adebo does in a contract year. Mm-hmm. I think Tyron is going to have, obviously, like, I just know defensively, like, them adding Willie Gay Jr. and Chase Young are really going to change the landscape of this defense. Like, I mean, they're pretty good, you know what I mean, as it was. But now with Chase Young being right, like, this dude is an animal. Like, I've never been excited about, at first I was skeptical about the thought of Chase Young, right? Because His time in
Mhm.
Washington and San Francisco, it looked like he took some plays off. Now, I think that's probably directly related to his injury, right? With the neck stinger and all this other stuff. The Saints get him right, and now we see a completely different player. Like, I just feel that. Same thing with Willie Gay Jr. Like, he just wants to play. He's got a couple of Super Bowl rings. Dude's a ball of energy. Like, they just added some nasty, mean dogs on defense, and I just feel like those two are going to make a huge difference this year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think too, I'll throw Carl Granderson in. I think he's a double-digit sack guy this year, and I think he's aided by the fact that Chase Young is there, should create a lot of one-on-one opportunities for him over on the edge. Had 8.5 sacks last season, leading the team. I think that he's able to continue to build on that. Remember, those 8.5 sacks came with a slump in the middle of the season, which he openly talks about. He always mentions that, like, I started off really strong, but then I hit this slump in the middle, and I hit a wall in the middle of the season, and I'm working really hard to make sure I never hit that wall this year. And I just love like that self-awareness of being able to see that in his play and say, okay, this is where I want to get better, and being open about it as well. Like, it's clearly a goal for him. And so I think that that's another guy that I would add in there. But I think the Saints they have the talent to get back to being a top 3 defense. I think their floor is a top 10 defense. The defense is where I'm the most confident on this team. It's the offense where, of course, I have the most question marks, just because it's a new system and how long will it take for them to get it under their belt.
Yeah, I was speaking to it.
Realise,
Go on, Mike.
Sorry, Dad. I was
That's
literally
right.
just going to say, I didn't realise just how big a unit Willie Gay is. I thought he, obviously, when you saw him, I didn't even, and then I've seen him sometimes, and genuinely, it's astonished me how big a unit that man is. So him, clash with him
Chase Young's the same way amongst those other defensive ends,
I was speaking to a Chiefs season ticket holder on holiday, and he said he was absolutely gutted that Willie Gay didn't come back. He's like one of his favourite players. He said he's going to be a great player for the Saints. So I'm him and I've bet on Chase Young for Defensive Player of the Year. So I'm all in. My chips are in. Chips are in. Needs to get a betting sponsor, Mike.
Betting companies, exactly what I was thinking, Dan. That and a bourbon company, and we'd be set.
Yeah.
Same.
Yes. The answer is yes.
Yeah.
Dan, obviously aware of the time, so I think we need to sort of look towards wrapping up with the guys. What have you got? Some questions you want to just throw at the chaps before we let them go?
So I had one question just around the media group at the Saints. So you guys know we were lucky enough to have Doug Tatum on the podcast, and we spoke to him a couple of times offline as well. And one of the things he said is, as a team, the Saints are really lucky that they've got really good people covering them. And he said that with all sincerity. He was like, the media team, the people who cover this team are all great people. Is that, in your experience, is that common with teams, with the media groups, to be as cordial as the people who cover the Saints are? Because you guys go out together, you socialise, and for all intents and purposes, you are competitors in your fields to an extent. Is that common to see that? I know obviously, Ross, you did a Locked On network, and you're probably close with the people who cover different teams there. But I was interested whether it's just exclusive to this team or whether it is something that's quite common throughout the league.
My understanding is that it's unique. I have a unique insight into this as somebody that manages all the NFL shows over on Locked On, and so I get to know a lot of these people that are working in different media markets and stuff like that. And so while I can't say anything from a one-on-one or direct conversation, what I can say is that I've had people in other markets express that, oh, you're hanging out with the writer from this place, or you're going out there with this person, or you and this other person that are writing for two different things, like y'all are still doing a show together and stuff like that. And like that, it's kind of strange for them to kind of see the connection and stuff. So I would say that in compared to some markets, at least the ones that I've had that exposure to, it's pretty unique. And I will say that personally, for me, I think it's a special thing because we're all competing, sure, but we're all also helping one another succeed. And I think that there's a mutual respect for everybody in terms of like when that is and is not possible. And everybody's kind of cool with it. And that's something that I really enjoy.
Yeah, I think it's the camaraderie. Like, I mean, a lot of people helping each other out, whether it's transcripts, whether it's, following stuff to make sure that we're all aligned, ducks in a row. I mean, there's been a lot. I mean, and I think most generally that's the entire media core that covers, you know what I mean? I'm going to sit here and, solo people out, but I think most everybody is willing to help and to do things. And just, again, it is a close-knit group. Some of us have done life together. Some of us go watch movies together. Some of us go out and have dinner and do these things. Like when you go on the road and when you're up, like when you're in the combine, it's nice to be able to, guys that you and gals that you hang out with every single day for an entire 6-7 months for football stuff, even more than that you can do things outside of the building and such. And so I think that's been really great, and I'm happy to call a lot of these people friends. So it's really nice to get to know them and all that stuff. So maybe it's unique to us. I don't know. I'm not sure on other beats, but I can see how nasty it is on other beats too on social media.
Yeah, that's true too. I think it's a reflection of the city too, if I'm being honest. I think it's a reflection of the community. Like everything is about connection here. Everything is about camaraderie here. Everything is about having each other's back and helping one another and all this other stuff. Like it's just kind of part of the community here. And I think that we have the great fortune of being able to reflect that as well. So I give the environment or the nature part of it over the nurture part of it, but the nature part of, or rather the nurture part of it over the nature part of it, it's due credence as well, because I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, we saw that just before we started recording when you helped John out with the time of practice today. I'm not going to exactly say how you said it, Ross, because
yeah, right. Yeah,
we pre-recorded that.
I seem to remember that
blackmail equipment going on.
No, he's joking. He's joking. You're joking, right? You're joking. You're joking.
It would be nothing that nobody wouldn't expect. Like,
yeah, that's very fair. That's very fair. Yeah,
100%.
Mike, I think you had a food-based question, didn't you?
Yeah.
I love it. My second passion in life.
So, which other NFL team would you cover based on their food scene?
Oh
man, I don't know, because in some markets,
can we take out
some markets? I don't know if I can.
We take out the. Can we take out the easy? Can we take out the easy answers of LA and New York teams?
Sure.
Yeah.
Because food wise, you can get anything you want in both of those markets.
I'm a carnivore, so I think Texas markets with barbecue and all that stuff, that's personally a favorite of mine. Not that I don't know what to say I'd cover Dallas, but Houston would be pretty fun.
Houston,
I like Houston.
Yeah.
Houston's
that's
pretty
exactly what I was thinking.
Man, we got to think the same way, Ross. I don't get it.
I'm saying the Texans were the one that I was going to bring up. So to get.
They don't.
No one say
a different answer. I'll say the Seahawks, right? I'll say Seattle, because Seattle's food scene is incredible.
Yeah. No,
or the Vikings. Minnesota's food scene is sick. Actually, it's actually really good. I'll say, but you know what? Winter. So Seattle.
no one's picking Cincinnati. No one's picking Cincinnati.
Yeah, no, I'm good on noodles and chili, fam. I'm good.
I think that about wraps us up, Mike, so we can let the guys get off to practice and see what the team have got schemed.
We're all about it. We'll make sure we tweet every single detail.
No, just DM us. It's fine.
Once again, gents, thank you very much for sort of making the time. I know, especially this week, your schedules must be all over the place with the season starting this weekend. So me and Dan really appreciate you guys coming on. And John, it's a pleasure to have you on for the first time, my friend.
Sure. Appreciate you having me, guys, as always. I mean, I'm a quick message away. I try to do as much as I can, you know what I mean? Because that's, I guess, without getting too sappy and stuff. Like, one of the reasons why growing up and going up the way I did with stuff is, people gave me the time of day, you know what I'm saying, when they didn't have to. And I'm not saying, like, I'm not above that, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't matter if your show has 5 followers or 5 million followers, you know what I mean? I just believe paying it forward and just being genuine about it, you know what I mean? I think that's just what I enjoy doing, is because I remember seeing myself on the opposite side sometimes and how nervous I was and how, you know what I mean? It's just, somebody's got to start somewhere, and it's just kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah.
We was absolutely shitting ourselves the first time Ross came on.
Yeah, we're excellent. Yeah, we're excellent. It was so much fun. Like just like this time, we had a blast and everything like that. It was always great. And you guys have been such like incredible supporters, like of everything that John and I have done, whether together or individual and everything like that. So like it's our pleasure to be here, and I'm grateful I got to come back.
No, we appreciate you guys. Really do.
We'll try and talk to you. We'll try and talk to you during the season. And John, it would be lovely to get on to do a slightly deeper dive into your story, because I think a lot of people would be very interested in that.
Cool. Yeah, if they give me the time of day, sure, definitely. All I need is the mic.
Get more on that modeling career out there, John. Restart. You can kick them tires.
He's back. He's back.
If Hollywood will take me, I'll do that. You know what I mean?
He's like, oh, I know what market I'll go to now.
There's a movie that needs a Hispanic male lead, right? You know.
Do you know what? I'm gonna let you go. I'll let you go. But we did have a question about comparing Saints writers to Avengers, because you're doing an Avengers team up with Saint City, with Second and Saints. But I'll let you go. You got to go, so we'll save it for next time.
Oh, good tease.
That is a
That's
good
excellent.
Tease.
Well
Man,
done,
that
Dan.
made me think.
Well done.
No problem.
Appreciate you.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Cheers, guys. Take care.